Alright, what's up guys? We are back for another video. In today's, we are going to break down Dane Brugler of the Athletics 7-round mock draft. I have not seen any of the picks. I would assume Caleb Williams is going number 1 overall. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. But aside from that, I have no idea where this mock is going to go. I purposely did not read any of it because I want every reaction to every pick to be organic. Let me know if you guys like this style of content because I really enjoy breaking down mock drafts. I really enjoy reading other creators' content, and I have a lot of respect for Dane. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, I'm going to try not to scroll so much past everything. Okay, so we have Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. Nothing is official until Commissioner Roger Goodell steps to the podium in Detroit and announces the selection, but Williams will be a Bear in little more than a week. That's about what I expect. That's about what everyone expects. Okay, number 2, Jayden Daniels, LSU. I do think that will be the selection at this point in time. The Commanders did something really weird recently, and that was host a bunch of quarterbacks all at once. I gotta be honest, I did not like that move at all. I mean, I want to say they hosted Daniels, Penix, May, and I think JJ all at once. That was really abnormal. I was not a fan of that, but I do think Jayden Daniels will be the selection at this point in time. He ran for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns during his final year at LSU. He brings a lot to the table just from a rushing standpoint, and when you have that high of a floor as a young quarterback, I think that's what Washington will lean towards, especially with the concerns around Drake May's footwork. Now, number 3 overall, let's see, New England, Drake May, North Carolina. It makes a lot of sense for New England. Drake May, to me, is QB2 in this class. I think his game will translate very favorably to the NFL. Of course, I will be eager to see in the second round and beyond how Dane goes about, bringing in weapons for Drake May, because I think everyone would also acknowledge that the weapons that the Patriots would have at this point are not very good. And, for Drake to have to throw to Hunter Henry, Juju Smith-Schuster, Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, that's setting him up for failure. So I'm eager to see where the Patriots go the rest of the draft. Number 4, projected trade. All right, let's see what the conditions are. 11, 23, and a 25 third to the Cardinals for number 4. I gotta be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the compensation for the Vikings giving that up for JJ. I've been pretty vocal that I would rather not trade up for JJ for the Vikings. I'd rather, trade 3 ones to go up against Drake. And especially in this situation, because I don't think the Cardinals are going to trade back unless they would get an absolute offer like this. They would have picks 11, 23, and 27 at this point in the first round. Of course, they get the 3rd next year. But I think that Minnesota could easily just say, look, we're not interested in trading up Arizona. We know that you're probably going to stick and pick Marv if we don't make this trade. And I think they could easily just go to 5 with the Chargers and not give up their 3rd next year with a team that already does not have a 2nd next year because of the trade to get pick 23 from the Texans. So, gotta be honest, not the biggest fan of the trade compensation there for the Vikings. Absolutely love it for the Cardinals, of course, but I'm eager to see if the Cardinals trade back up to get a guy like Rome, because I would imagine the Chargers draft Marvin Harrison Jr. here. We'll see, though. Okay, so Chargers take Marv, very simple. Or no, sorry. Cardinals trade up. Hold on here. They trade 11 and 35 to the Chargers for 5. So I misread that. Okay. So Arizona moves back 1 spot. They pick up 23 and a 3 next year while giving up 35. I mean, I know everyone is, everyone and their grandmother thinks that that Monty Ozenfort will trade back and trade up again like he did last year, but I don't think the Cardinals want to play with fire. It's one thing to trade back and then trade up for Paris Johnson Jr., who, by the way, was a good tackle prospect, but Paris Johnson as a tackle prospect was not the player Marv is as a receiver. So I don't think Arizona's going to trade back and then trade up with Marv staring them right in the face. And to be honest, at this point in time, I would be pretty surprised if Marv isn't there at number 4. But I love this draft so far for Arizona, obviously. I mean, they like I said, they get an extra first and a third next year, and all they did was give up their second to get Marv. So I like what they have. 6, Giants. Who do we have? Malik Neighbors, LSU. Pretty simple. Would be the best receiver since Odell. It would be, I mean, like I said, Darius Slayton, I've said this 100 times before. Darius Slayton's been their leading receiver in 4 of his 5 seasons with the Giants. The only year he didn't was when Kenny Golladay led the team in receiving yards in 21. Noted free agent superstar Kenny Golladay. So I love this selection. Ultimately, I do think for the long-term sake of GM Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Dable's job, I think they'll have at least next year as well. I worry about their situation. I have a video coming out Saturday kind of discussing everything around that, but we'll dive more into that then, but I like this selection for the Giants. Number 7 should be Joe Alt. It is Joe Alt. And I would be absolutely shocked if Joe Alt's there at 7 and the Titans don't take him. I think 7 is the absolute floor for Alt. He is the best offensive line prospect since Penei Sewell 3 years ago. Penei's played pretty well for the Lions in his 3 years, and I think Alt can easily be a Pro Bowl caliber tackle in the long run for Tennessee, and a multiple-time Pro Bowler at that. All right, 8, Dallas Turner. I like it. I don't love it. I like it. The Falcons get much-needed pass rush help. They absolutely need help with their pass rush. They, for seemingly a couple years now, have not had a lot of help along, with their pass rush. It's pretty simple. I mean, you have Kirk Cousins, you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Darnell Mooney, you have Bijan Robinson, you have Tyler Algier. This pick, unless it is Rome Odunze to kind of just go OP everywhere on offense, it needs to be pass rush. I wouldn't hate Rome Odunze, by the way, at all. 9 with the Bears. I'm not going to lie, I'd be pretty disappointed if it's not Rome. Okay, Rome Odunze to the Bears makes a lot of sense. And as Dane notes here, they only have 4 picks this year. They are 1, 9, 75, which is a 3rd round pick, and then 122. So Dane notes here that polls will be enticed by trade back opportunities, but there's not many Rome Odunzes. And I know this class, receiver-wise, is a really once-in-a-lifetime class, but if you can have a trio of receivers of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, and you can do really everything right with Caleb that you did not do with Justin, and Rome is staring you in the face at pick 9, I'm all for it. I will never, ever complain about the Bears taking Rome Odunze at pick 9, despite them only having 2 selections after this. They have 3 top 100 selections, as we noted, and I would like the Bears to maybe trade back at that point, maybe acquire some picks in the 170s and beyond, just some depth pieces. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I would not be a fan of them passing up on Rome Odunze unless somehow, some way they could get like a 1 next year, which I don't think is possible. But love this pick for the Bears. The Jets at 10, I'm thinking it's going to be O-line. It's Brock Bowers. Okay, so this is under the belief of we are eating our desserts before our vegetables. I like Brock Bowers as a prospect. I like the landing spot, but I'm also a little leery of the Jets having guys that are 33 years old plus at tackle and Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses and saying, all right, guys, we are going to roll with them for the entire year, all 17 games. Good luck. I would personally prefer Olu Fashanu, but when Brock Bowers has, 100 yards in week 1 or 2 as the tight end of the Jets, maybe even week 3, it's going to be pretty obvious or pretty easy to see why the Jets took him here. I do think offensive tackle would be more beneficial in the long run, but I like this pick to the Jets. I mean, you can sell either pretty easy. But I would personally prefer O-line. All right, 11, let's see here. This is the Chargers. Should be O-line. J.C. Latham, okay. J.C. is a guy to me that has a very high ceiling, and I think he will go higher than people think. Now, I don't necessarily think he'll be the second offensive lineman off the board. I think that'll be Talisa Fuaga from Oregon State, but I like J.C.'s game a lot, and I think especially in the first round with the type of upside that JC has. I think at times he is just an absolute mauler of an offensive lineman, and he had 1 bad rep against Michigan in the playoff game in the Rose Bowl, but for most of that game, I thought JC played really, really well, and I thought he played really well all year. And he's a right tackle, so this is an easy sell to the Chargers fan base. You have your tackles of the future with Slater and with Latham now. Again, not the biggest fan of trading out of Marv, but we'll see how the Chargers address that because now they have pick 35. So we'll see how they go about that. Pick 12 is the Denver Broncos, and they take Taliese Fuaga. I got to be honest, with with Bo and Penix still on the board, I'm a little surprised by this. I mean, I like the pick, of course. I thought they overpaid for McGlinchey. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. I see that the Raiders are taking Terrion Arnold, but I thought they overpaid for McGlinchey. I like this selection because Fuaga is an easy sell no matter what. I mean, if you take him anywhere, I would say from the Jets on, it is just an easy sell to say, look, we're going to take our offensive lineman for the next 6-7 years. I mean, you're never going to complain about that, and I think Taliese Fuaga has at least a Pro Bowl caliber potential at guard. I think he'll be a solid tackle, but he can really play at an elite level inside. So I like that selection. I'm just a little surprised with Bo and Penix still there, although I will say I don't know how the rest of the mock goes, obviously, but once you get outside the top 12 or 13, the Raiders being the last one, I think there's a very real possibility that the media isn't really talking a lot about. At least I haven't seen it personally. But I think there's a very real possibility that both Nix or Penix, if they're not taken in the top 13, slide. And if they're not taken in the top 13, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they fall entirely out of the first round. Terrion Arnold, there's not a lot to say here. I like Terrion a lot. I think Quinyon is a better prospect. Quinyon is my CB1. I love Quinyon Mitchell's game, but Terrion Arnold's still a very good prospect. Dane even says Quinyon Mitchell will be a part of the conversation here. The reality is, when you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes and with Justin Herbert, you have to figure out a way to slow those guys down. You know, we're not in the era anymore with Mike Mayock at GM taking a box safety and Jonathan Abram in the first round. So I like this pick a lot. And it's an easy sell, especially if Fuaga's not available for the Raiders, which is a player I've loved mocking to them, and of course he wasn't. So let's go ahead and move on here. Pick 14, the Saints, Olu Fashanu, Penn State, love it, pretty simple. They have a lot of question marks on their offensive line. I do think Trevor Penning is a bust at this point. I wish him the best moving forward, of course, but I'm not sold on Penning at all. I don't think there's potential to think that he's going to become a good starter for them. There's also question marks about Ryan Ramczyk entering the year, so Olu slides to 14. I think it's a no-brainer for the Saints there. All right, 15, Indy takes Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo. Love it. You're now in a division with C.J. Stroud, with Trevor Lawrence, potentially Will Levis. Don't know about that one, but for sure you are in a division with C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence for the next several years. You have to stop these guys. We're also factoring in lower moving costs from Toledo to Indianapolis, so like that all around. You know, might be a little more expensive for them to move in a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry coming from Alabama. You know, you could save a little bit of money once you go and take that. I'm kidding, of course, but I like Quinyon to Indy a lot, and I think he's a great fit for them too. 16, Seattle, Troy Fautanu. Again, we're saving on moving costs here, and I love Troy Fautanu. I think he is a great prospect all around. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that 3 or 4 years from now wish they took Fautanu. He has guard tackle versatility. He has 34-inch arms, which was huge. His arms were longer than I expected. I thought he was going to come in, maybe 32 and 7/8, right around that low 33 mark, but they were 34-inch arms. So Troy, he pretty much answered the questions with that arm measurement of whether he can play tackle at the NFL level, and you're never going to hear me complain about a good offensive lineman in the first round, and especially not one that has the guard tackle versatility like Troy does, and especially already, knowing the system with the Seahawks' new offensive coordinator here. All right. Buffalo Bills trade up. Okay, this is a hefty trade here. This is a lot of capital here. Okay, Bills trade 28, 133, which is a 4, 144, which I think is an early 5. And a 25 second to the Jags for 17. Okay, so the 25 second is a lot to move up 11 spots. I think this is a hell of a price for the Bills to move up 11 spots. The second is, at this point in the draft, now obviously moving up from like 15 to 4, then that would constitute multiple firsts. But the 25 second, I think Jacksonville has a really good end of the deal here. I'm eager to see where Jacksonville goes after this, especially after trading out of a player that I would love to mock to Jacksonville. But Brian Thomas Jr. could effectively slide in, play the Gabe Davis role. I think Brian Thomas Jr. now is a better receiver than Gabe Davis is now. I love Brian Thomas's game. He ran a sub 4.35 40. I want to say it was 4.33. I mean, he's a beast, man. And I know a lot of the criticism around Brian Thomas's game was that 60% of his routes were slot fades at LSU, but when you are as quick and as shifty as Thomas was on those fade routes, do we really not think that he can't run anything else, whether it's a post corner, whether it's a slant, whether it's a 15-yard dig? Do we not think that Brian can't hit those landmarks on those routes to be able to become a good route runner at the NFL level? I don't think so. I think Brian Thomas Jr. would have a case to be a wide receiver 1 in other draft classes, not every single class like Neighbors would in pretty much every other class except the Jamar Chase class, of course. But Brian Thomas to me is a very, very good prospect. And if Buffalo can get him here at 17, sure, that cost is a lot. At least it seems like a lot initially, but when he would go for 1,000 yards as a rookie, I don't think anybody would complain. All right, 18. The Bengals take Byron Murphy. So no Brock Bowers on the board, no Brian Thomas. They effectively replace DJ Reader here. You're not going to hear me complain about this pick at all. You're going into a situation with Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and now Byron as your interior pass rusher. I like Murphy a lot. I think him and Johnny Newton have been kind of each pushed down the board. I personally have Johnny above Byron, like both prospects a lot. But when you're in a conference in the AFC, you have to be able to get after the quarterback. And NFL teams are now placing a big emphasis on the interior part of the offensive line rather than the exterior. And we saw that with an example would be the Panthers signing guard Robert Hunt to a $100 million deal this offseason. So teams don't want their quarterbacks having pressure, right in their face all game. And if you can get after the quarterback through the interior, straight in a straight line rather than at an angle from an edge, rather than an angle from an edge, and you can go just straight there. That's going to help your chances of winning. And the Rams were one of the best teams. Well, yeah, they've been a very, very good team over the past several years, due in large part to number 99. So an interior defensive lineman, love it. And I like Byron Murphy a lot, although I do prefer Johnny Newton over Murphy as a prospect. Now, the Rams are on the clock at 19, and they take Jared Verse, edge, Florida State. Byron Young had a good rookie year. I don't think Byron is good enough to the point where he can have 14 or 15 sacks on his own, and you don't have to worry about a decent second pass rusher because of Byron. He was a third-round pick last year. I liked his rookie year a lot. He had a really good rookie year, and he actually was leading the class in pressures for a considerable amount of time. But now you compare him with Jared Verse, and of course still have Kobe Turner on the interior. He's all around a really good pick for the Rams. Pick 20, Steelers, should be offense. It is, Graham Barton. Okay, Graham Barton. I like this pick a lot. Graham can play anywhere on the offensive line. And not just play anywhere, but play at a high level. And if you can have this type of versatility along the offensive line in a 17-game season, it's kind of like a modern-day Elijah Vera Tucker. Elijah had versatility all across the board when he came out in 2021. Now, unfortunately, Elijah's been hurt for the Jets, but you're never going to hear me complain about a team taking a versatile offensive line, especially now that there's 17 games. Guys, we saw quarterbacks go down last year, and they take a lot less hits than offensive linemen do. So if you can have an offensive lineman that can play at an above average level, whether it's at right guard, left tackle, center, right tackle, it doesn't matter. Love the pick, and I would imagine the Steelers address receiver in the second round, especially now that they traded Deontay Johnson. 21, Miami Dolphins, Laiatu Latu. This is just like a copy-paste pick from the Jalen Phillips. I love it, and Dane even writes that the Dolphins were not scared off by Jalen Phillips, and I don't think they will be with Latu. With Chubb and Phillips working their way back from injury, Latu and his savvy pass rush skills contribute immediately. Yeah, love the pick. Latu's never going to be a power rusher. He's going to be a finesse rusher, a guy that will win with hand fighting, and I think he can definitely pick some things up from both Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. And if you can have a top 3 pass rushing trio of Chubb, Phillips, and Latu when healthy, it's going to help you win games in the AFC. 22, Philadelphia Eagles, or excuse me, should I say the Philadelphia Bulldogs select Amarius Mims. This is just a Howie Roseman pick in every sense of the imagination. Howie lets the board play to him. He has, and Dane even writes this, Jeff Stoutland is a very, very good offensive line coach. If you've ever listened to the Kelsey's podcast, Jason has talked about countless times about the utmost respect he has for Stout, and with how good of a coach he is and with how he can develop talent, I have zero concern of Amarius becoming a good tackle for them. And I think Cam Jurgens is going to become a better lineman now that his career goes on. And they also took Tyler Steen last year in the 3rd round. So you have 3 young guys with Steen, Jurgens, of course, and Mims. I don't know if Mims would start right away, but I like this landing spot for him. And Amarius is not built like any 330-plus pounder I've ever seen. He is kind of a one-of-one player. And I would honestly grade this either an A or an A+ if the Eagles made this selection. 23. This is the Cardinals because of the trade back, and they take Cooper DeJean. So the Cardinals leave the first round with they have another first-round pick. I forgot about that. They have Marv and Cooper DeJean, and DeJean is a guy you can play at corner. You can play him at safety. He's an all-around good football player. And the fact that you're leaving the first round with those guys, plus you still have another first-round pick that we'll get to in a second. I love this draft for the Cardinals. I think or at least I thought they kind of fleeced Minnesota with that trade, especially by getting that 3rd next year. So I love this trade, and I am eager to see. I'm not going to skip ahead, but I am eager to see who they take at 27. Dallas on the clock. Tyler Guyton. I would almost prefer Dallas to trade up to try to get Amarius Mims rather than Guyton. I think Mims is, at least in my offensive lineman tiers, I think he's a little above Guyton. I do like Tyler. I mean, having said that, I still like Guyton as a prospect. But they have Tyler Smith at guard. He played really, really well this year. He played pretty solid at left tackle during his rookie year, but I would prefer to keep a all-pro caliber guard inside rather than try and move him back out. So I do like this selection for the Cowboys, having said that. But if you can potentially trade up to 21 with the Dolphins and get Mims instead of having your division rival get Amarius Mims, I would prefer that for them. So still like the Tyler Guyton selection. Still think there's a ton of potential there. But I would prefer the Cowboys to try and explore a trade-up if possible. Green Bay on the clock. This is just an all-around good pick here. Jackson Powers-Johnson, to me, is an underrated player. He's been an underrated player this whole process. He killed it down at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's going to be a guy that you plug and play 6, 7, 8 years. There's going to be a lot of teams that 3 or 4 years from now just basically say to themselves, why did we not take Jackson Powers-Johnson when he was there? Now, I don't think he's on the same level as Tyler Linderbaum was a few years ago, but the Ravens had Linderbaum fall into their lap 2 years ago now, and there's certainly teams already just saying, you know what, why did we not take Linderbaum when he was there? Even if we didn't need a center or guard, why didn't we just take him and just use him as a starter for the next, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years rather than draft a disappointing player we did? Now, there's a couple teams that come to mind when I say that, especially in that 22 draft. I'm not going to say them out loud, but Jackson Powers-Johnson I think is going to have the same type of impact in a couple years. There's going to be multiple teams that, why didn't we take him when he was staring us right in the face? All right, 26. Nate Wiggins, corner, Clemson. Okay, so Tampa, they traded Carlton Davis to the Lions this offseason. I think I would be kind of surprised if Todd Bowles took Nate Wiggins. I think Todd would prefer like more of a physical, like a Kool-Aid McKinstry. But I like Nate as a prospect. The one big concern, of course, is his weight. That's always going to be a concern with Nate, and you have to worry about with Nate being 175 pounds if he's going to be able to hold up. That's going to be not just a question for 2024, but for his entire career. And I don't know how much weight Nate can put on. Can he get up to 185? I mean, he ran a sub 4.340, but can he functionally play at 185? There's a lot of questions I have with Nate as a prospect. And I would be kind of surprised if Tampa made this selection. I would prefer Kool-Aid personally. All right, now let's see. Chop Robinson to the Cardinals. So now you have a pass rushing duo of Chop and B.J. Ojulari. I was a huge fan of B.J. Ojulari last year. I mean, B.J. was a really good prospect coming out of LSU. Chop, to me, I think he has a higher floor than the media wants to portray him to have. And, of course, Chop's ceiling is amongst the highest in the class. So Arizona leaves the first round with Marv, DeJean, and Chop. I mean, there's not a lot to say other than that they would absolutely be one of the biggest winners from this draft. 28. There's Kool-Aid. Okay, so the Jags trade back to take Kool-Aid. Oh, man. I know they picked up a 2 next year. I got to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the Jags with where they are in the Trevor Lawrence timeline to trade back and trade out of Brian Thomas Jr. to take Kool-Aid McKinstry. I would prefer them to take A.D. Mitchell. If you can get A.D. Mitchell and get a 25-2 or get a 25-2 plus a 4 and a 5 this year to trade out of Brian Thomas, I would prefer that. I don't think there's that big of a drop-off between Brian Thomas and A.D. Now, I am higher on Adonai Mitchell than a lot of people. He's my wide receiver 5, but not the biggest fan of the Jags trading out of Brian Thomas for that. All right, 29. The Raiders trade up to get Michael Penix. Okay, so we discussed this earlier that there's a possibility that Penix and Nix fall out of the first round entirely. Las Vegas trades up to get the 5th-year option. Okay, so they trade their 2 and their 3 to pick 29. Honestly, I think this is great value for the Raiders. I mean, you just trade a 2 and a 3 to go up and get Penix. They walk out of the first round with Terrion Arnold and hopefully their quarterback of the future. I mean, Penix and Devontae Adams would be a very fun duo. I like this selection a lot. I'm going to see what Dane wrote here. He put, according to another person at The Athletic, the whispers are getting louder that the Raiders might draft Penix at 13. The scenario feels like the better option, even if it means parting with a pair of day 2 picks. He's a polarizing player among front offices. He's an aggressive down. Okay, and then it's just, mental toughness that will certainly stand out for Pierce and his staff. No, it's, I like, in terms of landing spots, I really do like Penix going to the Raiders a lot. All right, Ravens, Jordan Morgan. This is a player that, I thought Jordan was a late first back in January, February. Kind of fell to early to but early second round. And as we're within a week of the draft, I went back and watched the Jordan Morgan tape. I especially liked this tape against Latu. There was one rep in particular where he pancaked Latu. Latu, of course, will probably go in the top 15 picks. Jordan Morgan would be a very, very good pick for the Ravens. Like we mentioned earlier, you can never have enough depth along the offensive line. And Ronnie Stanley's never played a full season. They also traded Morgan Moses this offseason. I know they have Daniel Falele, a 4th-round pick from a couple years ago, but Jordan Morgan, to me, again, is a better player now than Falele is entering his 3rd year. I like Morgan a lot, and it would be a very Ravens pick to have him fall into their lap, and I think that that'd be a very good selection for Baltimore. San Francisco, oh my goodness, I forgot that he was on the board. Johnny Newton to the 49ers is, I don't want to say a cheat code, but it's just like, come on, man. I mean, it is. You sit there, you let the draft play out. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan would be head over heels if this is how the draft plays out for them. I mean, you'd have the 49ers defensive line. I mean, he'd play right next to Nick Bosa. Eric Armstead went to the Jags this offseason, so you'd be getting a replacement for Armstead. What a pick, man. I mean, they also lost Javon Kinlaw to the Jets in free agency. Play him next to Javon Hargrave. Or, I'm sorry, it might actually go Bosa, Hargrave, and then Newton, but you get the point. I mean, what a pick. I mean, all around, this would be an A+. This is my favorite pick of the first round, by the way. Johnny Newton, 31 to the Niners. Maybe not, actually. This might be my favorite pick of the first round. Adonai Mitchell to the Chiefs is, I mean, it's unfair, man. It is everything you think of in Madden. We're gonna pair a really fast receiver with Mahomes. We're going to run deep posts. We're gonna run streaks. We're gonna run drags and just get the ball in his hands. Wide receiver is a need for the Chiefs, no matter how the Rashee Rice situation plays out. Adonai Mitchell to me is a top 25 player in this class, pretty comfortably at that. Like I said, he's my wide receiver 5, and the Chiefs walk out with a first round talent in Adonai Mitchell. What a pick, man. The last 2 picks were absolute bangers. Johnny Newton, love the fit in San Francisco. Adonai Mitchell, love the fit in KC. Now let's go to the second round here. Panthers take Ladd McConkey. We've discussed Ladd before. I'm not going to go into all the adjectives about a white receiver, but he's a really good prospect. I like Ladd a lot. And having a trio with him, Thielen, and Deontay, hopefully they could get some size in that room. I wouldn't hate Keon Coleman going to the Panthers, but I do think Ladd is a little bit better of a prospect than Keon Coleman. All right, let's go here. So the Chargers draft Chris Jenkins and then Keon Coleman. Okay, so I like that. For the Chargers, I want to see, who did the Chargers take at 11? They took J.C. Latham. So they walk out with J.C. Latham, Chris Jenkins, and Keon Coleman from the initial trade back with the Cardinals. Let's take a look at some of these other picks here. I'm not going to go through every single one. For the teams that did not pick in the first round, we of course will. The Texans take Mike Sanderstill. Sanderstill is a player that reminds me a lot of Mike Hilton of the Bengals, previously of the Steelers. Just a guy that's going to be around for a long time. A great nickel corner. He's going to be a big pain in the rear end for receivers to deal with for a long time. Here's a pick that I like a lot. The Falcons in the first round go Dallas Turner and take Michael Hall Jr. in the second round at pick 43. I'm a big Michael Hall guy. I think Mike is a very underrated prospect, and for the Falcons to walk out addressing the interior defensive line and the edge, I like both. Hall could have 5 sacks as a rookie. Now there is some considerable down parts to Hall's game, but I like him a lot as a pass rushing defensive tackle, and I like that pick for them. All right, let's keep going here. Ricky Pearsall to the Colts. Love it. You get AR some help. Troy Franklin to the Jags. Okay, so at least we got Trevor some help. I do like that selection a lot. I love this pick here. Cooper Beebe to the Bengals. Also like Roman Wilson to the Steelers. And Bo Nix goes to the Rams. Okay, so I gotta be honest, I love the idea of Spencer Rattler going to the Rams, but I do think Bo Nix is a better prospect than Rattler. So if we can have Bo Nix, be a backup to Stafford. Stafford, of course, has a lengthy injury history. I wouldn't want Bo Nix to play as a rookie because that would mean that Stafford got hurt, of course, which we don't want. But I like the fit there, and that could even be a potential successor to Matt Stafford, who is 36 years old. All right, I liked Roman Wilson to the Steelers, and then the Browns did not have a first-round pick. They take Mason Smith, defensive tackle. I'm a little lower on Mason Smith than a top 60 pick. I would personally prefer Rook Orororo, which the Texans take at 59. I like Rook's game a lot, and I like that pick for the Texans. We're going to keep going through here. Another selection that I love here, great value. The Ravens get out of the first 2 rounds in this mock with Jordan Morgan and Xavier Legette. The Ravens, as we know, only put up 10 points in the AFC Championship game. They could also run the ball more. They had Keaton Mitchell go down for the year, but, kind of to go full circle here, because I know that was kind of a little ramble, but the Ravens only ran the ball 6 times in the AFC Championship game. But if you're going to, give Lamar as good of a chance as you can to succeed, if you can have Xavier Legette run slants, drags, touch passes, even hand him the ball on sweeps, anything, Xavier Legette would be a great option for the Ravens to have. I like Legette, but Legette has to go to a good situation for him. He's a very situational usage player, especially early on. All right, let's go ahead here. We're not going to go through all the rounds, but I want to go through some of my favorite third-round picks. Trey Benson, absolutely love that for the Giants. Trey Benson is a very good running back prospect. I like him a lot. It'd be a great fit there, and the Giants desperately need help on offense. Tyler Nubin, third round. I think that would be a steal of a safety. Tyler Nubin could have been a top. I think he could have been a second round pick last year for the in the 23 draft. But he goes in the third round here. I like him. Jalen Polk to the Lions is the ultimate Lions selection. Jalen is a really good run blocker. He's a very, very Dan Campbell type player in the aspect of, we're going to bite a kneecap. We're going to basically kick everyone's rear end, and we're going to be the last one standing. So love the fit there. Spencer Rattler goes to the Broncos. That's an interesting selection there. I would be eager to see how that would play out. Let's take a look at some of these other selections. Theo Johnson to the Bengals is very interesting because Theo is a height, weight, speed guy. Could the Bengals develop him? Would be interesting to watch. Theo would, of course, be in an interesting situation with of course, Jamar and T in front of him. So there wouldn't be a lot of pressure on Theo, of course, but it would be interesting to see how that would play out. All right, let's keep taking a look here at some of the other selections. Malik Mustafa, top 100 love. I like Mustafa a lot. I think he will be, at minimum, a great special teams player for a long time. And I think in Baltimore he could develop, and they just lost Geno Stone in free agency, so I don't think Mustafa would start in year one, of course, but you back him up, play him on special teams, and he could be a developmental player. Now, one other pick that I really like here, Christian Mahogany to the Chiefs. I mean, the rich get richer. Mahogany is a very, very good guard, especially at pick 95. Let's keep going here. Chris Abrams, Drain, love the corner selection for the Rams at pick 99. And even like the Steelers going Braylon Trice, the all-effort player from the University of Washington at pick 98. So let's keep it going here. Oh, by the way, I also did like Chris Braswell to the Bears. I'm not the biggest Braswell guy. At least I wasn't earlier in the draft process, because there were times where Braswell was going to, he was mocked consistently in the back half of the first round, in the top 35. I don't think Braswell was a top 35 player in this class, but if you can get him in the third round and walk out with Caleb, Rome, and Braswell, while of course having Montez Sweat on the other side, and then having Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens in the center, it's a good defensive line all around. So I like that for the Bears a lot. All right, round 4. Let's see here. Cedric Van Pran to the Cardinals. Love that. Cedric Gray, linebacker to the Seahawks. Love that. Ben Sinnott, Panthers tight end. All around good. All around, I like it for the Panthers, man. I really do. Ladd and Ben Sinnott. I'm a big Ben Sinnott guy. I'm also a really big Hunter Norzad guy. He has interior offensive line versatility. He played a couple of years at Cornell. Hunter is a very, very smart player, and you see it on tape. He didn't have a good game against Ohio State, but I like Norzad's interior offensive line versatility, and at minimum, I think he will stick around for 5 or 6 years in the league, at minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 7 or 8 year player. I like Norzad's game a lot, and I think in the 4th round, he's a big day 3 steal. But the last pick that we will discuss, or actually last couple, Audric Estime to the Bucks. Love it. I'm a big Estime guy, and I'm a big Javon Baker guy to the Bills. So absolutely love that. And that's going to wrap up today's mock. If you guys enjoy this comment, and if you enjoy this content, please let me know. Like the video, subscribe. This is, of course, also on the audio platform, so please leave a 5-star rating. Apple, Spotify, Football Analysis Podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Like I said, subscribe there. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.